Remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer ruined his brother's car business by designing a car that was so very strange it bankrupted the company? You may be shocked to learn that very real car manufacturers have designed automobiles that are even more peculiar than the one Homer designed. Let's take a look at some of the oddest to ever hit the road. And don't forget to let us know which of them you think is the weirdest. These are the strangest cars ever made. Number 15. Banana car. It's not going to be seen in the Fast and Furious movies anytime soon, but Steve Braithwaite's famous banana car is definitely something that you want to talk about. It's really something, and by really something, we mean it's shaped like a piece of fruit. And who among us hasn't thought about enjoying a ride on a speeding banana? Built from the engine of a 1993 Ford F-150 pickup, the banana car is a fully drivable 4x4 vehicle constructed by native Englishman Steve Braithwaite, who spent 8 years handcrafting his big metal banana. Man, that was a weird sentence. Braithwaite says he built the car because he wanted to be the most ridiculous man in the world, a label that would definitely suit the kind of guy who would build a car based on a piece of fruit. And while the vehicle does occasionally get pulled over by police officers who just want to get a closer look at it, it's completely legal and suitable for driving. It's bananas! Sorry. If you're wondering how Braithwaite makes money from these crazy ideas, he travels across America and offers rides to banana enthusiasts. That definitely sounds like a euphemism, but it's not. Steve has a big banana. And not only do people want to see it, they really want to take a ride on it. Like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or Slenderman will come from under your bed when you're sleeping. Now it's time for the juicy topic. Those of you who live in the UK, or don't but consider yourself an Anglophile, might be aware of the infamous bendy bus. For those of you who aren't, the experimental buses could actually bend in the middle, making it far easier for a large vehicle to turn a tricky corner. While a few were in circulation for a while, the bendy bus never took off in a major way. But that didn't stop people with a little too much time and far too much money, experimenting with the concept and taking it further. One such man was a billionaire and car enthusiast, Simon Maxwell, who decided to fund the development of a bendy limousine. While the development was a total success, the car isn't exactly road legal. Thankfully, he has a large enough estate that he can drive it around his own grounds. He continues to campaign for the right to drive this on public roads. Do you think such a vehicle should ever be allowed to careen around real cities? Comment down below with the hashtag #JuicyTopic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 14. BMW Isetta. How to describe the 1956 BMW Isetta. It's as if the Muppets time-traveled to the 1950s and designed the car of the future. It's a teeny, tiny, almost miniature car that seems virtually incapable of carrying people over a height of 4 feet. It was also hugely popular. Apparently, people in the 1950s loved getting cramp. The Isetta is a futuristic-looking bubble car that looks kind of weird to us now, but in the 1950s, this was basically viewed as a style icon. When the Isetta was introduced in 1953, the press went nuts for the little guy. Measuring 7.5 feet in length and 4.5 feet in width, the car somehow managed to contain enough space for comfort, an accomplishment that almost seemed impossible to the Italian journalists covering it, who quickly believed they were seeing the future of transport. Just 2 years later, in 1955, the Isetta became the first mass-produced car in the world to achieve a fuel consumption of 78 miles to the gallon, a record that undoubtedly helped make it the top-selling single-cylinder car in the world. Yes, this egg car sold out worldwide. The BMW Isetta ceased production in 1962 1952, but the vehicle continued to be built under license around the world, making the tiny car a huge success. People can't get enough of that cramp. Number 13. Cadillac Cyclone XP74 concept. Picture this. You're sitting at the inaugural Daytona 500, enjoying the racing when suddenly the unimaginable happens. A spaceship drives onto the track, except it's not a spaceship, but a car, specifically the Cadillac Cyclone XP74 concept. Okay, it would have been more interesting with a spaceship, but I have to work with what I have. In 1959, Harley Earl and Bill Mitchell designed what they believed would be the future of cars, a NASA-style futuristic vehicle that could easily be mistaken for something from the Jetsons, complete with bubble top, coated in a material that would deflect the sun's rays naturally, automatic sliding doors, winged spoilers, and two exhausts that looked like jet engines. It's hard to believe that this was a real car. But it gets crazier. The two black-tipped points on the front fender of the car were designed to hide a radar-based guidance system, not unlike GPS, that would interact with the smart roads of the future, which obviously didn't exist, and the car even featured a proximity warning system that would, in theory, alert the driver of potential obstacles. All of that is technology that we have available in our modern cars. The XP74 was retired in the 1960s, but its spirit lives on through our modern tech. Now we just need Rosie the Robot. Number 12. 1962 Peel P50. It seems that throughout the 1950s and 60s, designers were competing to build the smartest and most impractical car possible. And for some, that challenge became a glorious reality. Meet the 1962 Peel P50, the smallest car in the world. In 1962, that is. Look, it still counts. Measuring 106.1 inches long and with only 3 wheels, this car was officially deemed the world's smallest car when it was debuted in 1962, though the record is now held by a car almost half that length, proving that designers are all about impracticality. The P50 seats one person, barely, and the vehicle may well weigh less than the actual driver, coming in at only 130 pounds. In fact, drivers were known to be able to pull the car along with one hand, which, given that it only hits speeds of 28 miles per hour, may prove to be faster than if you drove it. The car stopped being produced in 1969, but has since been reborn thanks to funding from BBC investment show Dragon's Den, who invested enough in the project to bring the P50 back to our roads. I'm sure we'll be grateful when a driver decides to take his car for a walk in rush hour. Number 11. 1961 Amphicar. I think you all know what an Amphicar is going to be, right? It's a car and a boat. And apparently, it's not particularly good at either. While most designers in the 1960s were focused on designing ultra-sleek vehicles that looked like they could fly, some were busy experimenting with cars that could both sink and survive. Kind of. In 1961, Hans Trappel publicly launched his pride and joy at the New York Auto Show to much public enthusiasm. The sleek 60s design, coupled with the promise of James Bond-type underwater adventures, was enough to make anybody excited. Unfortunately, the excitement faded when it came to making it a reality. Make no mistake, the Amphicar was not a cheap gadget. To operate the vehicle, 2 insurance policies were required, one as a car and one as a boat, making it a pretty costly effort for a car that is, by all accounts, pretty mediocre. After a single use in the water, the vehicle required significant greasing, including the removal of a whole seat. That's a lot of work for a glorified dinghy. While it's a pretty strange creation, the Amphicar has its supporters. US President Lyndon Johnson had one of the vehicles and was a big fan of driving it around the pond on his ranch, mostly as a way of testing new staffers and their courage. Number 10. Mercedes-Benz F015. It's easy to look back on the past and laugh at their ridiculous idea of what future cars would look like. But we're not exactly all that advanced ourselves, as you can see from the F015. Or, to give it its full name, Luxury in Motion. You just know this one's gonna be rough. In 2015, Mercedes-Benz unveiled their own view at the future with the F015 Luxury in Motion, a pod-like vehicle that is designed to not be driven. This car in particular is intended to be self-driving and is made up of a lounge-like cabin of 4 rotating seats and extra indoor entertainment. It's basically a private jet for the road, a luxury, put-your-feet-up kind of ride that allows for complete relaxation without the stress of road rage. Although there is a manual option if you particularly like the road rage. Hey, sometimes you need to let it all out, you know? While it's an excellent idea, the F015 is nowhere near being a feasible creation. The biggest problem is that there's just no way to make a network of refueling stations that could sustain them, which makes the whole idea of the car pretty pointless. At least it looks nice, I guess. Number 9. General Motors Firebird 3. What was it with the 1960s and the cars that looked like spaceships? It seems just about everybody was looking to get in on the spaceship race in their own unique way, even if that meant designing a fundamentally weird car like the GM Firebird, or as I call it, Space Kit. There's one for you, Knight Rider fans. Sorry, millennials. The Firebird 3 was built in 1958 and was particularly notable for the fact that it broke a whole lot of stylistic rules established by one of the most legendary General Motors designers, Harley Earl. With basically no chrome and absolutely no parallel lines, the Firebird was a complete anomaly to the General Motors style, and that's precisely what made it appealing to the general public. Unsurprisingly, the Firebird 3 did not exactly become the must-have car of the 60s, but it definitely looked pretty great. This was not just a car, but a modern twist on classic space-age vehicles, complete with an unusual approach to the inner cabin. 2 glass domes surrounding the driver and passenger. That's probably more hygienic, but it does make conversation impossible. Actually, that sounds like the perfect car to me. Number 8. The Motorhome. The 1980s were filled with genius ideas, but we're going to ignore all of them in favor of one of the more interesting ones. Apparently, someone was offered a choice between a motorhome and a boat and couldn't make a decision, resulting in a compromise. Both. That was surely how the motorhome came to be, unless some mad scientist found a way to actually breed a boat and a motorhome. The motorhome was created by taking the cab from a 4D series van and combining it with a 28-foot boat, creating a whole new monster of a hybrid. On land, it drives like your standard RV, only this one comes with the opportunity to pull up at the dock and just turn into a boat. Best of both worlds! Of course, the idea of a motorhome is so niche that only 21 of them exist in the world, which just goes to show how few people find themselves in need of a motorhome that can survive in water. The idea of combining 2 completely different vehicles isn't new, but nobody ever created a car quite like the motorhome. This is a whole new, weird world, and we're on board with it, although we're not sure which half. Number 7. 5 million Learjet limo. To spend $5 million on a plane that cannot fly may sound a little bit crazy, but don't worry, you're right. It is crazy and impractical. That's also part of the appeal, oddly enough, because what's the point of money if you're not willing to spend it on something that can't be used for its primary purpose? In 2018, designer Dan Harris publicly debuted the end result of 12 years of hard work, the Learjet limo. By repurposing the fuelage of a wingless Learjet into a groovy-looking street-legal limo, Harris believed that he could kickstart a whole new line of business, a private, traveling nightclub. That's right, the outside of the limo says party time, but the inside also says party time in a different way. Obviously, all of this party time depends entirely on your budget. If you don't have $5 million lying around, you're probably going to have to get the bus. But while many will look at the limo and think it's tacky or silly, it's definitely a unique business model and one that Harris turned into a franchise. Millionaires really will throw money at anything. Number 6. Upside down truck. We've all thought it. Trucks look great. But what if they were upside down? Well, dream no more, my friends. Mechanic Rick Sullivan made your fantasies come to life. Why did he do it, you may be asking? I have no idea, but I'm guessing he was pretty drunk when he came up with the idea. Over 6 months, Sullivan used his $6,000 budget to gather materials for his masterpiece, including a 1995 F-150 and a 1991 Ford Ranger. By placing the F-150 pickup body over the top of the 1991 Ford Ranger, Sullivan managed to construct a very unique and entirely street-legal upside-down vehicle. Again, we're not entirely sure why, but it's pretty apparent that the guy was very proud of it. And why not? It's definitely something you're going to notice, especially if you're a highway patrol officer looking for car accidents. Unsurprisingly, the upside-down truck is a particularly popular sight with those that happen to pass by, with Sullivan estimating somewhere around 1,000 photos of the car being taken every day. And if he ever gets bored with the car, he can just flip it over and it'll still look okay. Number 5. Hot Tub Cadillac. The hot tub time machine was such a success, so why not add some wheels? That was probably the thought that motivated the creation of the Hot Tub Cadillac, a probably hygienic water bath capable of reaching temperatures of 102 degrees while traveling 100 miles an hour. Who am I kidding? Hot tubs are never hygienic, wheels are not. This moving bubble bath was designed by Phil Waker and Duncan Forster, two LA-based engineers that had built the original prototype at Canada's McMaster University during what we can only assume was a completely drug-free break from studies. Years later, they once again found themselves inspired by that bacteria-filled invention and began transforming a 1968 Cadillac Coupe de Ville into a moving health violation. The rest, we hope, was history. Most of you are probably wondering why anybody would want to invent a hot tub on wheels. But the answer is pretty clear: to break world records. In 2014, Waker and Forster drove the vehicle along Utah's Bonneville Speedway in order to break the land speed record for the world's fastest hot tub. It's a tight contest, apparently. Number 4. The Extreme Super Truck. Sure, super trucks are already pretty extreme, but when the wheels are as big as a human person, that takes things to a whole new level. Most of us have reluctantly accepted that Transformers don't actually exist in the real world, but if they did, they'd probably look a lot like this. These 10-foot tall trucks are built by designer Chris Walker at his warehouse, Extreme Super Truck, and are tailor-made to the client's exacting specifications. That means that if you want to have a mini bar in the right rear fender, you probably will get a mini bar in the right rear fender. Legal? Maybe not. Fun? Always. These trucks are almost twice the size of a typical pickup truck and nearly 6 feet longer on average. And they're entirely drivable, capable of pulling 2,500 pounds and driving at speeds over 100 miles per hour. But all of this custom joy comes at a steep cost. On average, these cars come in at a price around $90,000 and $250,000. That's a lot of money for a vehicle that could steamroll just about every other vehicle. But for a Transformer, it's worth the cost. Number 3. Submarine Sports Bar. It seems every man wants to be James Bond, whether he will admit it or not. And now, apparently, even car designers are taking inspiration from 007's legendary rides. One designer got the idea to create a fully functioning submarine sports car, much like the one Bond uses in The Spy Who Loved Me. Good idea? Probably not. But you never know when you'll need to speed away at a reasonable speed and depth water. The submarine sports car is basically designed to give you the experience of drowning without actually doing so. Much like the Bond classic, the car floats when it drives into the water, and then, with the use of a lever, is capable of diving deep beneath the surface. Thanks to 2 water jets at the front of the vehicle and 2 propellers at the rear, the car is capable of moving at a speed of 2 knots and can reach depths of 30 feet. And for those that aren't claustrophobic, you can even stay underwater for an hour thanks to the scuba tanks. It's nice to know that if any of us happen to have $2 million on hand and feel like taking an underwater dive for a few hours, the option is there for us. Why we would ever feel like doing so is a whole other thing. Number 2. Ecto-1. When there's something weird in your neighborhood, there's only one thing to do. Ghostbusters! For most of us movie buffs, there are few vehicles as beloved as the Ecto-1, the car of choice for New York City's most famous extraterrestrial exterminators. Most of us, however, probably wouldn't go to the effort of building a realistic replica of the legendary car. Unwilling to get even the most minor detail wrong, Ohio resident Lauren Baldwin spent 8 years hunting down the car from the movie, eventually locating the same 1959 Miller Mateer vehicle that was the basis for the movie version. After another 2 years of hunting for the other parts, Baldwin was finally ready to construct his love letter to the Busters, working with local businesses to gather all of the necessary details, and saving about $80,000 in the process. The end result is an incredibly faithful recreation of the movie car, complete with the storage tank, working lights, and even the exact same siren as that in the film. While he does apparently enjoy driving the car around for fun, who wouldn't, Baldwin mostly drives the car to charity and celebratory events. Bustin' makes everybody feel good. Number 1. Trucktopus. Full warning, the name Trucktopus is a lot more exciting than what it actually is. An 8-wheeled pickup truck. I know we were all expecting it to be some crazy multi-armed truck, but we do the best with what we have, right? Maybe it's got ink pockets or something. The Trucktopus is not just a minor tune-up, of course, but the end result of 20-something years of hard work by Steve Francis, a Tennessee towing company owner. Pretty much every aspect of the truck has been tweaked in some way, with the body lowered, new wheels, and souped-up engine, and something called suicide doors. It's less exciting than it sounds. All of that led to this extraordinary creation, which is unsurprisingly a big hit at car and motor shows all over America. With a name like Trucktopus, it's obvious why people journey from around the world to see it. It's pretty weird. Like most people that have transformed their vehicles into wildly unique creations, Francis has been pulled over by the police purely because they want a selfie with the car. Well, it's good to know the law enforcement have their priorities in order. Which of these unusual cars would you most like to take a ride in? Let us know in the comments. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on the screen right now. See you next time.